Abby, if I start getting really gravelly, swoop on in. I will not be offended, I promise.
Dr. Turner,
Yes, sir.
you got on a bow tie?
Yeah, yeah, dude.
All right, there you go. That's better. We need to
These are the really important questions that need to be addressed tonight.
I wouldn't let you down, Maya. I know.
I love that
This
you
was
just
an
needed to pop
expectation.
up a little more to show that off. That is good work. That is good work, Jesse Turner. All right. We have a lot of people with us tonight, which is wonderful. Looks like 71 and counting. So I'm so happy to see so many members of the community interested in this very important topic tonight. So good evening, everyone. It's great to see you, and thanks so much for joining us at this Albemarle County Public Schools Forum on Internet Safety. My name is Helen Dunn. I'm the Legislative and Public Affairs Officer for ACPS, and I'm grateful to be joined by several colleagues from Albemarle County, as well as the Commonwealth Attorney's Office and the School Division. And I just want to apologize for having kind of a gravelly voice tonight. I've been a little bit sick this week, so we will pass on my moderating duties if it gets a little bit too bad, but for now I'm just going to kind of give it a try. Also, just want to apologize for the fact that we don't have a Spanish interpreter with us tonight. It is our policy to make sure that all members of our community can engage with this kind of event, regardless of native language. We did try many avenues to make sure we could provide interpretation, but unfortunately it just didn't work out for this evening. In order to rectify that, we will be posting a recording of this forum on our YouTube channel tomorrow. So anyone who would like to engage with this meeting in a language other than English will be able to do that using YouTube's translation features as soon as the recording is posted. So I'm now going to introduce you to the people who are here with us tonight. And first we have Abby Stumpf, and she serves as the Public Safety Information Officer for Albemarle County. And she's also graciously agreed to help me in moderating the Q&A portion of this forum, and possibly more if my voice gives out on us completely. In addition, we have First Sergeant Lance Smith from Criminal Investigations Division, Detective Michael Schneider, Special Victims Unit, Detective Mike Wells, Criminal Investigations Division, Jordan McKay, Assistant Commonwealth Attorney, Captain Tavis Coffin, Criminal Investigation Division, Major Gregory Jenkins, Bureau Commander for Criminal Investigations Division, and finally, Dr. Jesse Turner, ACPS Director of Student Services. So we have a really great group of people who'll be here to just help provide all this useful information tonight. We're going to start tonight by having our panelists share a bit about how their professional roles deal with various issues related to school internet safety. After that point, we have a few presentations for you. So the first is social media, school threats, consequences, and prevention tips for parents and guardians, led by Detective Schneider and Mr. McKay. Then Dr. Turner will speak to you about resources and tools available to students and their families. Detective Wells will speak about other internet safety concerns, such as cyberbullying, sexting, and predators. And then we'll have a discussion of ACPD's Cyber Crimes Lab and its capabilities, led by Detective Wells. And finally, we'll have a Q&A session, which, as I mentioned, Ms. Stumpf and I will moderate. And for that, questions will be submitted by a chat and then brought forward to the panel for a live answer. Please submit any questions you may have through chat. And please keep those questions related to procedures, resources, and other information you've received during this forum. Any questions you may have regarding specific incidents at schools over the last few months or years should actually be directed to the school's principal rather than to this panel. We want to keep this a little bit more procedural so that people can really understand how this works in the county. So at that point, I'm going to pass it on to our panelists. First, as I said, to do a quick introduction and kind of tell you how they work in the county in terms of this type of protection and safety. And then we will move on to presentations. So first, I'll pass it to First Sergeant Lance Smith.
I'm First Sergeant Lance Smith, currently assigned to the Criminal Investigations Division. I oversee cybercrimes lab, along with the Special Victims Unit.
Thank you. And Detective Michael Schneider.
Detective Schneider, I'm with Elmore County Police Criminal Investigation Division, assigned to the Special Victims Unit. My specialty is cases involving children. So naturally, I'm going to be in the schools. I'm going to be working a lot of school threats. And I dabble a little bit in cyber crimes with Detective Wells.
So Detective Mike Wells.
I'm Detective Mike Wells. I've been in law enforcement in Central Virginia for 28 years, the last 17 of which have been in the Criminal Investigations Division, Albemarle County Police. And I work in the Cyber Crimes Division, Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, as well as with the Homeland Security Task Force officer that allows us to pursue those who prey on our children federally and statewide.
Jordan McKay.
Good evening. My name is Jordan McKay. I'm an assistant Commonwealth attorney in Albemarle County, and I prosecute the cyber crimes and internet crimes against children. Glad to be here. Thank you.
Captain Tavis Coffin.
Good evening, Tavis Coffin. I've been with the County Police Department for a little over 20 years now, and my current role is to oversee the Criminal Investigations Division, which includes some of the units that you just previously heard. Just look forward to this conversation today, and thank you for being in attendance.
Major Gregory Jenkins.
Good evening, and thank you for having me this evening. I'm Greg Jenkins, been with the Albemarle County Police Department for little over 29 years now, and I am the Bureau Commander for Criminal Investigations in the Police Department.
And finally, Dr. Jesse Turner.
Good evening. I'm Jesse Turner. I'm the Director of Student Services for Albemarle County Public Schools. In my role, I work with schools, principals, to help keep children safe, to also help determine and manage a positive climate and culture in our schools. And I'm stationed at Central Office, and this is probably around my 28th year in this business.
Thank you all so much for sharing a little bit about your roles with the county. And so I'm going to pass it on now to our first presentation, which is social media, school threats, consequences, and prevention tips for parents and guardians.
All right, just give me a moment. I'll share my screen here and pull a PowerPoint for you guys. Hopefully everybody can see my screen. Helen and everyone, can you guys see it? Again, I'm Detective Schneider. I'm going to be working on this presentation with the help of the Commonwealth Attorney's Office with Assistant Commonwealth Attorney Jordan McKay. So some of this may be a refresher for some parents. Some parents may have never have heard of TikTok, Snapchat, or Instagram. I'm going to go through just a 30,000 feet overview of what these apps are, and then we can talk about some prevention and what to do. So the big one that we see all the time is Snapchat. It is mainly a mobile app, which it can be downloaded on a computer. and it allows for a snap, or which is a message or a video, to be sent to someone else on your friends list, or to post to your story, and those eventually just disappear. You can set a time. Usually it's about 10 seconds. Something will disappear, but that doesn't mean it's gone. So you can screenshot, but it will tell the user when the screenshot happens. The stories, when someone posts to those, it's like a little video or a little collage of pictures that will come across on someone's page. They last for 24 hours. And then after 24 hours, they are deleted. Then the next big one, I think, is being taken over by the millennials anyway, is TikTok. It was actually started as an app called Musical.ly in 2018. It was bought out by a company called ByteDance, and they changed the name to TikTok. It is primarily a video sharing app. You can add comments to videos, but the sole purpose of this app is to post 15-second videos, or now you can post 4 15-second videos to make one long 1-minute video. Fortunately, TikTok has been subject to multiple investigations for child safety in the EU and here in the US. I don't know right now what the results of those are going to be, but they don't have really any safeguards to stop children from using the app. And then we have Instagram. Instagram is an American company. It's owned by Facebook. You mainly can do photos and videos. It's not like, on Facebook where you can do a written just post about whatever people can like it. These are mainly photos and videos. It's a simplified version of Facebook with that emphasis for mobile use, for phone use, and picture sharing. It allows also for video stories, which are those short little clips that you can see at the top of someone's page. You can click on it. It's something that's pre-written in there. Somebody will make, and they'll just leave it on their page. As of last week, there are an average of 1 billion users on this app monthly. So you'll notice that I haven't talked about Facebook or Twitter. Mainly, I haven't personally worked any cases recently involving Facebook or the Twitter application. And also, a lot of our children now aren't using it. Kids are mainly on Instagram, Snapchat, and TikTok. Facebook's for the old folks. For all the adults, all the parents, we're the ones on Facebook now, and not many people use too much Twitter. It is for a good kind of news platform. People will try to spread news on there, but it's not really being utilized by children. It's mainly TikTok, Snapchat, and Instagram. So one of the big questions I got when I was working some of the recent threats is that, why isn't this solved yet? What's taking so long? Why haven't you figured out who it is? And that's because it takes a while. We don't have access with the click of a button to get this information. I can file what's called an emergency disclosure request. And that's something that the federal government has allowed us to go in, file with a lot of these. Anybody that is in the US, a company doing business in the US, has to abide by and provide this information if someone's life is in imminent danger. And all these school threats meet that threshold. There is not really a timeline, though, when they can have to respond to us. It should be immediate because it's imminent threat to someone's life. But it can take sometimes an hour, sometimes 8 hours, sometimes days for someone to get back to us. There's no set time when the company will get back to us. If the emergency disclosure request doesn't work, we have the option to get a search warrant. And that takes time. We have to write the search warrant. And then we have to either go to a magistrate or a judge. Typically, we'll go to the magistrate first. And if we're having issues, we'll go to a judge. That also can take a very long time because if the magistrate's busy or we can't find a judge, that can take hours sometimes for us to get the search warrant. And then we have to submit it to the company. Once we submit that to the company, there's no telling when they'll get back to us. We can ask them to expedite. We can request, hey, and we can just bombard them with emails. But we have some cases I personally have had cases, I'm still waiting, and it's 6 months later, I'm still waiting for information on the case. It's just, there's no set restrictions on privatized companies to give us information. The other one is a subpoena. That is something we actually have to get notarized and take before a judge and get the judge to sign it. Once the judge signs that, we also still have to email it, fax, or actually snail mail if we have to the private company, whether it be Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, whoever. But again, we can add that we request this information be delivered by this date. However, if they don't comply with that, there's no recourse for us. If they don't give it to us by then, they just don't get it to us. So that's part of the reason that it's taking so long for these cases to be solved. If we don't have the information, or if we don't find out, we don't have a name for someone, we just have a screen name, it takes a long time for us to find out who created that account. And a lot of times with Snapchat or TikTok, that information can be completely false. You can create one of these accounts so easily with a fake email, fake name, and we have to try to go back through IP addresses to track someone down. I think I'll let Jordan handle the code sections part. He's going to be much more knowledgeable than I am on these.
Thank you, Detective Schneider. Well, just going through some of the more common code sections that come up when dealing with cyber threats. And the first one is code section 18.2-60, and that's the general felony threat code section. And it simply states that if anyone makes, if a defendant or individual knowingly communicates by writing a threat to kill or do bodily harm to an individual, and that action or threat was taken, was to take place at a school or school bus or anywhere on school property, and that the person who the threat was made to was in reasonable fear or apprehension of bodily harm, then the individual who's done that is guilty of a class 6 felony. And then there's another code section of 18.2-22. That's just general conspiracies to commit felonies. It's a general conspiracy code section. So if anyone conspires or assists anyone else in committing a felony, that person is guilty of a class 5 felony. Next slide. Oh, Detective Schneider, thank you. Another code section is the conspiracy to commit terroristic acts in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And that kind of lays out, this slide outlines what a definition is of a terroristic act. And with respect to those charges, they range anywhere from class 2 to class 4 felonies. And next slide. And this outlines what a class 6 and class 5 felony entail. A class 6 is a 1 year minimum to 5 years of imprisonment, or no more than 12 months in jail. Class 5 is a 1 year to 10 years imprisonment, or no more than 12 months in jail. And then I don't have this on the slide, but there's also class 4, which I mentioned earlier, involving any sort of conspiring to commit act of terrorism, is 2 years to 10 years imprisonment. Class 3 felony is a term of imprisonment of not less than 5 years, but no more than 20 years. And then finally, a class 2 felony is imprisonment for life or any term not less than 20 years. I think given that all of these offenses are felonies and carry a significant amount of time, I think it indicates just how serious these offenses are, or how serious the General Assembly considers these offenses.
Well, now that we've probably scared all the parents with the amount of incarceration their kid can get and what the punishments are, what can you do as a parent to stop these either threats from happening or your child getting in trouble? So the biggest thing is monitor your kids' online activity. I mean, that's the biggest part. You have to be aware of what they're doing online. If they have a phone, if they have a computer, a tablet, any type of online account, if they have Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, know those passwords, know the usernames, know the password, know how to log into the account, check the phone every night. Don't leave the phone in their room. You have to know what they're doing, and just be aware that most kids now have more than one Snapchat account, more than one Instagram account. I don't know about TikTok accounts. I mean, they may have more of those too, but it's very common for me to interact with a juvenile and find out that they have 5 or 6 different Snapchat accounts. And they call them the spam accounts as well. So you need to go through those accounts, and whether it be nightly, weekly, just have a routine of going through the phone or these accounts and just checking. And they may not like it, but it's for their safety. And also have a conversation with your kid about using their phone in school. This has been a big issue a lot with these school threats. Before we even get notified, the threat has been shared to over 50 or 100 kids. I mean, it spreads like wildfire. We'll get notified once it's been spread all over the place. And they were sitting in school when it came in, and now it's spread all over the school, and we're having to play catch up and find out what's going on. It does make it very difficult for us to work the case and find out who initially made a threat when we're having to get a screenshot of a screenshot of a screenshot from someone else, like the 50 kids down the line. The big thing for us is, if you or your child, if they see a threat and they tell you that they see a threat, don't share it. Don't tell them to share it. Don't, tell them to immediately contact the school administrator and then contact the police department so that we can start working the threat immediately and not have to have multiple people seeing it before we can even get working. Which leads me to the next slide of, don't post it, don't share it, please don't. Just contact us, contact the school. If you do call the school first, they will call us. We have a good relationship with them. They will call. Most of them have met either Wells or myself, so we'll be able to work on and get working on it pretty quickly. And that's, let me see if I can stop sharing. That's all I have. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. And I think our next is going to be Dr. Turner. So we'll move on to you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Dunn. First, I'd just like to say that I want to thank the Albemarle County Police Department as well as the Commonwealth Attorney's Office for working together this evening to try to share some information and educate the community as best we can regarding some of the things that's happening around the county to keep young people safe. For those of you all who may not know me, I've had the pleasure to serve as the principal of 2 of our comprehensive high schools here in the county. I was a principal at Monticello High School as well as Albemarle High School. And during my time as a principal, I've worked very closely with the police department as well as the Commonwealth Attorney's Office when we've had serious issues that required both offices or departments to get involved. And the police as well as the prosecutors have always worked extremely well as far as I'm concerned with the schools and helping us to not only solve crimes, but to prosecute when necessary. tonight I would like to just share a little bit about what we do to try to keep young people safe. Maybe even kind of what I've run into or ran into when I was a building level administrator, when working with students, especially a student who possibly made a threat to the school or to any individual. And I've shared over the years with young people that please to never use social media as a way to deal with boredom or a way to express oneself just because they're angry. Because if it comes out as a threat, oftentimes that can turn into a long drawn out problem that might even become a situation that is dealt with within the legal system. And for some young people, depending on what it is, it could lead to being detained or incarcerated in some sense. It could follow them for the rest of their lives. I've always shared with young people that please, if there's an issue, any issue, to share it with your parents, to share it with someone at the school. But please never use social media as a way to express your anger or boredom or to get back at someone, because it can turn into a nightmare. So with that being said, I've also always encouraged the adults that are in the schools to work extremely hard to build relationships with students. Learning doesn't really start until there's a strong relationship between young people and the adults, but also trust. I believe that trust does not start until there is a relationship, because I've seen young people, when they have trust with an adult in a school, they are willing to share any information that they can to keep the school safe, to keep their friends safe, and to keep everyone within the walls of the school safe. So in Albemarle County, we do expect from the central office, from the superintendent's office, we expect for our adults to work hard at building meaningful relationships with young people, so they have someone to go to if there's an issue, or if they're afraid. So obviously we've had some issues, and there have been issues all around the country, but I want to share a few of the things that we are doing to try to address or to give students, staff, parents an avenue to feel safe and to voice their concerns. So one is, I'd like for parents to know, I know that the students know because they're there when we go through drills, things of that nature, but each one of our schools has a crisis plan. Our principals work with their teams to craft and update their crisis plans every year. They submit them to my office during the summer. I work with my direct supervisor, Kevin Curse, and then we get those rolled back out to the schools by the start of each school year. So there is a crisis plan. So when students are going through fire drills or lockdown drill or shelter in place, any drill, it's been scripted, it's in black and white, and it's something that we follow. So it's not done off the cuff, or we're trying to come up with how to keep children safe when something happens. It's most likely in our crisis plan, and children are taught what to do, and staff are helping to guide the process when needed. So that's the first thing. Also, there's a protocol emphasize providing information to parents, students, to the broader community as soon as possible based on information that is factual, actionable, and immediate. So, for instance, if there's a threat, it is our intention, and we work very hard to make sure that as soon as possible, we are communicating with our stakeholders. Now, sometimes it's been slower than maybe any of us would like, but what we never want to do is miscommunicate to parents, because we know that the parents are not at the school. They only can go by what possibly they have heard from their children through text or social media post. And we want to make sure that when we send out a communication, it is concise and it makes sense, and it's factual. Okay. Now, this year, in our secondary schools, so that means our high schools and middle schools, we've been fortunate enough to add a safety coach. And these positions really serve as an additional layer of support. A person in the building that will work with administration, work with counselors, and what I want to see happen, which I know is happening now, is that additional person that's there to build relationships with students, and to be a sounding board, to be a person that students can go to when they are anxious, when they're stressed, when they have something going on that they need help with. They need help sorting out, because we've learned over the years that when children don't have that avenue, then sometimes they try to take on too much, and that creates stress for some young people that's unbearable. So our coaches are there to work with the students as well as the families. And to date, I will say that our coaches have collaborated very well with their principals. Many of our students absolutely know who they are and actually seek them out when they're in need of help. So we're seeing a good return from this investment in terms of putting different individuals in our schools with some different job responsibilities that are basically rooted in building relationships and helping young people find success as students. We also have, this is not new, but we hit the refresh button, I guess, for lack of better words, on the Anonymous Alerts app. And I want to thank the students. In my position, I actually receive the alerts for every school. So I know when an alert is sent to each one of our schools. So I get to read them all. And I really want to thank the students. The majority of our alerts comes from students, and our students have been dynamite in terms of trying to alert us to any situations or issues that they think might be a problem. And our principals have been on top of it. We've also had our parents to send in alerts. I want to thank our parents because it takes all of us to make sure that our schools are safe. I know it seems like it may be just the people who work in the buildings, but it's all the stakeholders. So when our parents have heard that something could occur at the schools, or they've heard something that's just disturbing, they have used the alerts, and it has provided us with the opportunity to jump right on those situations and start to work on them to try to resolve whatever's going on. So I can't put enough plugs in for anonymous alerts. And anyone who's not familiar with that, you can actually go to the anonymous alerts app through our webpage, Albemarle County Public Schools, and you can see how to use that app. But right now, it has served as a wonderful tool for students, parents, and all stakeholders to alert principals, as well as central office staff, to any concerns. When it comes to our threats, or threats that have been made to the school, our superintendent has led this charge. He's very thankful for the individuals, the students who make sure to inform us of anything that could potentially cause harm to the school that they attend, or anyone in the school. And we pay a monetary reward to anyone whose information leads to the prevention of a threat. I think that's awesome because it's just our way of showing our students, who we love and care about deeply, that we're willing to help you because you're helping us. No one wants to have a threat against a school that could end up in someone being hurt or worse. So we really appreciate any information that allows us to actually get to the root of the problem and either stop it or be able to pinpoint where it has come from. So we appreciate, and that's one of the ways that we try to show that we appreciate the information. And just the fact that the safety and security of our school communities is not a person business, it's a people business. We take what we do very seriously. And we believe that our children can't learn if they don't feel safe. Our parents cannot go through their normal daily routine if they're at work or wherever, and they're worried about whether or not their children are safe with us. So we want to have those relationships, personal and powerful relationships with our students and their families, because all of us own a piece of that responsibility of keeping the schools safe. So I don't want to take up too much time or screen time here, but I'm happy to answer questions if I can. And if not tonight, then I'm sure I will get an email, and I will try to respond as quickly as I can. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Turner. Helen had to step out and restart her computer, and hopefully, I know that there were some audio issues, so we're hoping that will fix it for folks that are home that were having a hard time hearing her. In the meantime, we're going to move over to Detective Wells, who will be able to discuss a little bit more about other internet safety concerns that parents might have, and then also discuss a little bit further about the resources that ACPD has, including a cyber crimes lab. So I'm going to have you speak now, please, Detective Wells.
Thank you, Abby. My pleasure to be here. I welcome all you parents that have questions to reach out to us. If you have questions about our capabilities, what you can do to prevent these things from happening, and what your children can do personally at home, what you can do personally at home as a parent. I'm a parent myself, so I can imagine some of the things that are going through your mind when you get a phone call or a text from your child at school saying that there's been a school threat. Detective Schneider did a great job with Assistant Commonwealth Attorney Jordan McKay talking about the threat. And one of the things I just think it's important to mention is the reason behind us not wanting children to pass the threat along to other children is because that kind of muddies the waters for us as investigators when we show up to the scene. Because if the child tells it, we want them obviously to tell staff at the school, and then staff at the school will make necessary notifications to get us rolling there to start the investigation. What makes it difficult and muddies the waters is when a kid sends it to another kid, sends it to another kid, and then a group, and then we're trying to figure out where it came from. So just if we can contain that as much as possible, that'll help us get a really quick start out of the gate to try and find out where this came from. And I'll go over a little bit about how we do that in just a few minutes. First, what I do primarily is internet crimes against children, and that has to do with sometimes children self-victimizing, which is where they would take a picture of themselves nude and send to someone else. Sometimes that is solicited by someone else. And where I come into play is usually when it's sent over text message or over some sort of electronic means to another person. That's just always a bad idea, and every parent wants to prevent their children from doing that. The best way to prevent your child from doing it is to collect their electronic devices at night, make it a routine. Boundaries keep us all safe, and that helps us as well, because nothing good happens after midnight. If they roll over and get their phone out, and then if someone tries to persuade them to do something that they ordinarily wouldn't do in the middle of the night with sleep deprivation, they may just make bad decisions. Kids make bad decisions already because they're kids. There's no need to try and accelerate that process by letting them keep their phone overnight. If you're going to let them keep their phone, their electronics overnight, my child's like, you don't trust me. No, absolutely not. I don't trust you. You're a child. That's why. It's because you'll make inherently bad decisions until you get older, and we're trying to prevent you from that. So we work very well with Dr. Turner. We're going to be working with staff at the school to try and make sure, because it's just like a threat. You don't want to pass that on. So if you get a picture that's questionable, it could be child sexual abuse material or child pornography, or a picture of someone under the age of 18, which is defined as child pornography, then we don't want you to forward that on, because then you're also creating more problems, because then you're guilty of transmitting or disseminating child pornography, and that technically you could be charged for that even if you have no intent. So we don't want you to do that. We got to keep all this kind of contained, and when in doubt, give us a call us out. When in doubt, make sure you tell one of the school staff, and then we'll look into that. So they wanted me to touch on cyberbullying. Cyberbullying is not a real thing. For me, that's not a crime in Virginia. What is a crime is online harassment. Okay, so if you're doing computer harassment, or you're talking to someone in a certain kind of way, threatening manner, or lewd and lascivious, then that is what's called computer harassment, which is a class 1 misdemeanor. For those keeping score at home, that code section is 18.2-152(7):1. So that is computer harassment. So if your child has been bullied, then that would fall under the computer harassment code. I know the school takes a different stance on that, and bullying is a thing in the schools, that the schools can do some administrative sanctions on children that bully others. But as far as when it falls into the court of the police department, that would be something we'd look at, would be computer harassment. So a couple of things that we do in Cyber Crimes Division, as we'll get into the lab here in just a minute and talk about the computer forensics portion of it and cell phone forensics portion of it. Right now, what I wanted to talk about is some of the things we do in cyber crimes also is undercover chat operations, where we talk with people online and different types of third-party applications, where they will try to entice what they believe is a child to send them maybe some lewd and lascivious pictures or videos. And then they'll also sometimes send us pictures and videos, and we take that very seriously. Your child's safety is a high priority at the Albemarle County Police Department. Captain Coffin and Major Jenkins and Chief Lance take that very seriously. There's a big investment in Cyber Crimes Division and the Internet Crimes Against Children task force portion of our agency. And so we monitor not only online activity by doing undercover chat operations, but we'll also monitor peer-to-peer traffic, which sometimes people get on peer-to-peer networks and share child sexual abuse material. So we have a way to kind of track that activity as well. So what I'll do now is I'm going to start a little PowerPoint presentation on our Cyber Crimes Lab. Abby, is my screen up? Someone?
I can see it. You're good to
All
go.
right, cool. All right, just making sure that worked. So this is our cybercrime lab, just kind of just a quick and dirty look at what we have. If you want a private tour as a citizen of Albemarle County or resident of Virginia, you're more than welcome to get that. Just give me a call sometime, make sure that due to COVID, we can let you in the building, all that good stuff, but I'll be more than happy to talk to you about it. I'm trying to move the slide forward and it's not working. Oh, there we go. Okay. So in our cybercrime division, we have 3 people that can do forensics. And also a fourth would be Detective Schneider can do certain things with phones. He's also certified in doing some cellular devices. But it's myself, Detective Michael Akarachi, and Mr. Blaine Cosgrove, who's our in-house forensic examiner. He's a detective retired from Charlottesville City. He was a city officer for 34 years, but he has an amazing ability to do computer forensics. The supervisor right now is First Sergeant Lance Smith. And what you're looking at here is one of the workstations within our cybercrime lab. We have 3 workstations. Each workstation is ran by the workhorse of the Tolino forensic machine that costs more than $17,000 each. A lot of this stuff was given to us through the Internet Crimes Against the Southern Virginia Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. That's a mouthful. Is ran by the Bedford County Sheriff's Office, and so they have grant funding available to us that they share, and we're able to get some of that funding occasionally to help outfit our lab with because it's always changing. So if you're looking for a tax write-off, then certainly consider the cybercrimes lab, because there's always a need. We have a really long needs list, and we have a really long want list as well. So we're always looking to keep our lab fresh. So each workstation is there. 2 of them are 8-foot workbenches. The Tolino forensic workstation is 128 gigs of RAM. Some of the nerd talk here, 24 terabyte RAID. We have built-in write blockers, which prevents us to write into the evidence. Each workbench or workstation is manned with 2 27-inch monitors. We have magnifiers, LED lights, anti-static mat, because static is our enemy. Private network that we can send files back and forth to the stations. We also have a very large RAID array that we just bought. No internet go on these workstations for obvious reasons. We don't want to take a risk of being hacked at any time. So any software updates that we get, we have to manually take those on a hard drive, scan them, and then update our workstations. We also have a forensic imaging capability. We have station 1 is also manned with what's called a Logicube forensic imager. That's a very fast machine, basically, that can make a copy, is what that is. So we can image hard drives to any station in the lab, or to a hard drive for a defense expert. Sometimes we'll come in and want a copy of evidence to take a look at. We have a total of 4 devices that can image in addition to each workstation where we can image as well. So other tools we have a Ramsey box, which is the thing that looks like it has 2 hands in, and some people might say that would look like some sort of a sandblaster. What that is it prevents devices from getting a signal while they're being worked on. So believe it or not, some people will try to send a wipe command to their phone remotely. So if we can't get the phone in airplane mode for various reasons in the field, we can bring it in, put it in this box, and manipulate the with the gloves that go in those holes, and manipulate the phone and actually do an extraction from there. Beneath that, the black box there that you can see on the bench is a cell phone charging station. We can securely charge up to 32 mobile devices at one time. And we try to keep those phones charged up because it's very easier for us to get extractions. We have three main tools that we can use for mobile forensics. I won't get into the type of software that we use for that because I don't want to bore you with that. Tablets are generally examined just like a cell phone. We have, as I told you earlier, we monitor peer-to-peer traffic online. What we do is like watch for, we have a system that'll watch for known child pornography images or child pornography videos by the hash value. And then it'll flag those and tell us like, hey, we've got somebody, trading child pornography. So then when we get a device and we mount it and image it, then we can analyze it. And we use GriffEye primarily for our analyzing of data, particularly pictures and videos. And then we can get a kind of a pie chart of what kind of contraband we found on it, that kind of thing. GriffEye is a law enforcement tool. We also have DVR Examiner, which is good because we had a horrible time. Everybody in the county has some different type of proprietary video system. Like if you go to one 7-Eleven, they might have one video system. You go to another 7-Eleven, they might have a totally different system. So now we have what's called DVR Examiner. So we can go out and actually recover proprietary video on scene, or we can bring the DVR back to the office. And that's very important because timing and people going into stores and people going into, video capture in public now is a common thing. Most businesses have some sort of video evidence. And frankly, so do a lot of homes with Ring cameras and those kind of things. So this is a really cool tool that we got in the last couple of years that's really helped us and kind of expedited that process for us. Real quick, what we do is we have two different ways to get authority to look at a phone or a computer. So we can do a search warrant or electronic consent, essentially. That I would like to say here, though, that it is important to note that if your child had knowledge or had some sort of interaction or communication that led us to the school for, let's say, a school threat, and they received something on their phone, even though they're not a suspect or may not be a suspect, we may seize their phone as evidence, as a witness. So just keep that in mind, that if the police take your child's phone, I know phones are expensive, and we do our very best to get those back to everyone. We can seize phones if we believe there's evidence of the crime that can be easily deleted if we were to leave it there. So we have an exception where we can actually seize the phone from the person and then seek a search warrant. And we can't search the phone until we get the search warrant if there's no consent, but we can take it and then seek a search warrant. The Supreme Court has determined that 30 days is too long to seek a search warrant. So what we do as a rule of thumb is once we seize a piece of evidence, what we believe to have evidence on it, we go to the magistrate's office as soon as possible, usually within 1 to 5 days, if not that same very day. I try to knock them out right away because I want to just get it over with and just get the ball rolling. So that's something to keep in mind as a parent. So we also have technical assist request forms for our officers out in the field if they're working a case, if they have anything that they need help with. We have an email set up. It's cybercrimes@albemarle.org. We prepare reports. As you can see here, here's a detailed report of examination on a case that we assisted the ATF with a threat. So we have a lot of capabilities, a lot of software that I didn't get into, but we're always looking to upgrade. So, if you have any questions or any comments or concerns, I'll be glad to try and answer your questions at the end.
Thank you all so much for these incredibly helpful presentations. And we have received quite a few questions. I did want just to, as a quick reminder, we will have the rest of this time, so until 8:30 p.m., we will be able to take questions. We are asking people to submit questions through chat, and we have received quite a few. I'm going to ask again just that people keep their questions related to procedural resource types of questions rather than specific questions to incidents that have happened at the schools over the last few weeks or months. But we will answer as many as we can tonight. And I wanted to let people know that if their questions don't get answered due to the limited time, we have an email set up, an email address that you can send questions to. And that's webinarquestions@k12albemarle.org. Again, webinar questions, WEBINARQUESTIONS@k12albemarle.org. So please feel free to send any further questions you have if they don't get answered to that email address. So we will go through a few of the questions that have been asked so far. And the first one is, I will actually take the first one. I'm going to respond to it myself, which is about the TikTok story that was on the news tonight about a nationwide threat to schools tomorrow. And I just want to say that the Virginia Fusion Center on December 8th was notified by local law enforcement entity of a message that was written about this. And there have been investigations done. They made a statement that says that the threats were investigated. Law enforcement found them to be non-credible. And other than this isolated incident, the VFC, Virginia Fusion Center, is not aware of any direct threats, nor has any specific Virginia target been mentioned. So we are going to keep an eye on this and, of course, respond as necessary if any credible threats do become, if we do become aware of any credible threats. But I just wanted to say that there was a statement made by the VFC suggesting that they have investigated these threats and determined that as of right now, they are not credible. And I think that was a question submitted by a couple of people. I think the next question is, are there any conversations about bringing SROs back into schools? And I would pass that on. I don't know if there's, I think Jesse Turner would probably be our best person to respond to that.
And Dr. Dunn, can you repeat that question? Make sure.
Yes. So the question is, are there any conversations about bringing SROs back into the schools?
Well, right now, we have not had conversations regarding bringing SROs back into schools. But what we have talked about is continuing our strong relationship with the police department. We have access to them 24 hours a day. I've had the pleasure this year of being able to work with them as early as 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning when certain threats have occurred. They'll call me at that time of morning. I'll call them. We work out systems for them to go to the schools where the threat has occurred. And we've just continued to have a very strong relationship with them, and they continue to help us in any way possible. But again, and I'm sure that the person who asked this question probably knows this, but the school board decided last year to not have SROs at this particular time. But our connection with them and what they do with the police department and what they do to help us is extremely strong.
Thank you so much, Dr. Turner. So next question pertains to the notification process when there's a threat to a school. And I would just say that there is a protocol in place in the school division whenever there is a threat made to the school, to any school. And I just want to say that we do send out communications as soon as we've had a chance to investigate threats and start that process. Of course, the first thing we do is call the police. And then from there, we do notify families as soon as possible. Beyond that, the schools will always notify schools that are in close proximity to one school. So for example, whenever there is a school, I would say Albemarle High School is very close to Greer Elementary School and Jewett Middle School. So whenever anything happens at one of those schools, families from all three of them would get a notification there as soon as we're able to get that out based on conversations with the police. So there is a protocol in place, and I'm happy to provide more information to anyone about that if they want to contact that webinar email address. We're happy to say more about that. And Dr. Turner, I don't know if you want to say anything on that subject yourself.
No, I think that I may wait to respond to something else.
Okay, thank you. All right. All right. I'm having some sound issues that I'm trying to work through on my end, and I apologize for that. We've had a question about the anonymous alerts app, so how that has been shared with students. And I would just tell you that we have shared in terms of just getting information out to students. We've worked really hard through communications directly to our students on a school-based level. We have posters in each of our schools communicating the option of using anonymous alerts. And we've continued just encouraging the use of that through any time any of these threats, for example, have taken place. We have had conversations about that and included the utility of the anonymous alerts app for our students. So Dr. Turner, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
In terms, Helen, of what we have.
The use of anonymous alerts throughout the county, just how the students are being informed about that app and the option of using it.
Oh, yeah. Well, the students have, we're fortunate because we have a large number of students who have been introduced to anonymous alerts prior to going home for COVID. And when we returned and hit the refresh button, it just kicked right back in. So with that, like you said, the posters, there's been conversation at the schools to encourage children, to educate them about anonymous alerts, and then to encourage them to use the app. But it's all kind of been based at the school level at this point.
Dr. Turner, and I'm going to pass off to Abby Stump because I'm having some sound issues from my end. I do apologize for that. So Ms. Stump, if you'd like to take over, I'll still be here, but I'll just pass off for you for sound purposes.
Thanks, and we hope, please do relay any other additional sound issues if anyone at home is hearing them, just so we can kind of stay on it and make sure that we're getting you the information that you need. I'm going to switch gears a little bit and give some questions to our detectives that are here. There's been several questions, and I don't know, Detective Wells or Detective Schneider, if you want to speak a little bit more to this about the sharing of threats, whether it's to texting it to your family, texting it to your parents, or sharing it just for information purposes, you know, sharing that threat. Could you speak to that a little bit more, why the importance of not sharing that is, maybe from an investigative stance?
Yeah, so it's hard to determine where it originated. If they want to talk to their parents about it, I have no problem with that. But sending it to students that they're in class with, or just trying, because then it grows legs and it takes off like wildfire. And then we get there and it's the school's trying to contain the threat, do a lockdown. There's a lot of logistic things that have to go into play and happen there. So we're not asking them not to tell anybody about it. We just want them to tell a responsible adult about it, so that we can start rolling out resources to try and determine, okay, so this person's a witness. They received this threat. But if we have 50 people that have the threat on their phone in just 2-3 minutes, that's really hard to kind of contain. It's kind of like a wildfire. It's just, it's taken off. And, you know, then we have to start giving more resources to it to interview all 50 of those kids, whereas we could have just interviewed 2 or 3 if they would have just kind of not keep it to themselves, but just not share with peers. If they could share it with staff, and then staff can take the appropriate action as far as school safety is concerned, because that's the priority. We don't want that taking off and growing legs and just starting to spread like wildfire, where it's hard for us to get there and determine who's involved and who's not, and those kind of things. Hope
Great,
that answered that question.
Yeah, I mean, it's a challenge, so I appreciate you speaking to that further. This one, I'll let you pick who's going to jump in, but is there any recommended software that could be helpful to parents? They name bark.us, for example, or is there something else, other tools that we can share with parents or guardians on how to help monitor their students' devices?
I mean, there's a lot of different spyware that parents can put on a phone. You know, there's stuff that you can buy third party. Who knows if it works or not? It may work well. The best thing that you can do instead of just buying this third party software is knowing passcodes to your kid's phone. Just know how to get into it. Ask them to write down their passwords that they have. There are plenty out there. If you just Google, you know, third party monitoring software for a phone, you know, there's some stuff you can install, but I can almost guarantee you your kids are going to know how to uninstall it or know what it is when they start looking at their phone. So the best thing you can do is just monitor your kids and know their passcodes, know all their passwords would be the best thing you can do.
Yeah, it's I come from maybe a different time, but you know, if your child if you're providing your child some sort of electronic device, you should have a way to monitor what they're doing. It's you have to be responsible for some of looking and checking up on your children about that. I do that regularly. It's not my favorite thing to do, and yes, it's a warrantless search is what I tell my son. This is a warrantless search. You know, I provide you this, so I'm going to look at it, and I should know the password. And if you change that password, then you'll lose this device. So that's the way it is. I know parents don't like to do that, but you know, we have to do that to actually make sure everyone's safe. And it's not so, and you'll see some things sometimes, like not so much. You also see like some of the behaviors of some of the friends that maybe your child hangs out with. So then that's good intel for you to have. Maybe this is not the best person for your child to be hanging out with right now until they get over this, or maybe you can help try and get your child's friend through a hard time in their life, something of that nature. So I think monitoring your child's device manually is always the best case. We're not allowed to give advice on what software to get, because there's, then the other ones would say that's not fair. You can't recommend them. But I do encourage parents to go to the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force website and the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children website. They have a lot of different partners that they recommend. So I would look at that, but I would also make sure that you take your child's phone and set safe boundaries. So I don't know, 10 o'clock at night, you take all their devices. And then while you have them, you do a warrantless search on your child's device and see what's up, see what they've been doing.
And Captain Coffin, I think you'd like to chime in a little bit on this as well, especially with some prevention measures that parents can adhere to.
Yeah, so let me get my camera back on. So it'll hit a little bit on what both Michaels were just talking about. So I mean, I do agree, taking a phone away at night is certainly very helpful. And obviously the biggest part is having those dinner table conversations. I was once told that, to get a child to speak, put food in front of them and they will talk. That's about one of the few times you can actually get them, because they're apparently distracted on eating. That was coming from my son's principal. So conversation is certainly key, but I would also, I actually, I don't mind sharing a couple apps. I don't have any I guess experience with these, but there are certainly some interesting apps out there that you can certainly vet as parents and see if anything's ideal for you. So someone in the question and answer form asked about Bark. So there are places like Bark. There's a program called Canopy. They're apparently in competition with one another. Canopy seems to offer a lot of preventative stuff, where Bark is more of a reactionary, being able to see things after they've happened, where Canopy claims that it can, intercept a lot of, text messages and conversations with people that you haven't, that you put filters on. And for when you do research on those types of apps, I would just, like PC Mag or places like that are great places to start, just because they often will vet it, review it. As Mike had indicated, there are also some government websites out there that you can, exploitation websites that you can view. One of the things, so I have a 13-year-old son who is just, has been begging us for a phone, and he does not have a phone at the moment. And I find that it works for us, but I know it doesn't work for all families, just because of, just whatever you have going on and needing to be able to keep in touch with your child. So my wife and I, we've kind of explored a little bit on some cell phone options because we may be getting into that with his sports and traveling. He was actually traveling down in Dinwiddie today, and so he doesn't have a phone. And how do we stay in touch with him? There's some interesting phone options out there as well. Again, I'm not promoting these, but I just want to make parents aware. Gab offers a cell phone service and cell phone and even a watch. It's really designed more for your younger generation. So if any parents on the forum today have kids in elementary school that require some type of device or early middle school, it's a very limited phone. So it's no social media apps, no internet or no web searching, things of that sort. It really is just like a GPS locator and a phone contact. You as a parent can install like X amount of numbers in there, and that's all they can, they can only call those numbers. They can only receive calls from those numbers. The downside to that is you do have to subscribe to their own carrier. I think they're operated off of T-Mobile, but I think it's a fairly, reasonable fee, because you're not getting all the smartphone data usage that you normally would with, giving your child a smartphone. Should you find a need to kind of have a more advanced phone for a child, and this is not the only company, again, I'm not advocating for this one, but it just will get you in the right direction. There's a company called Pinwheel that has a cell phone that you can buy from them. You can either use your own carrier, or they work through Mint. And actually they're the ones that use the T-Mobile towers, Mint does. So I stand corrected on Gab. But nevertheless, what's interesting about this particular phone, they claim that you are, they screen all the apps. So the apps, you as a parent can set apps and allow like the phone to grow with the child. And so you can kind of restrict what comes in, what comes out. But what they don't allow is they're all pre-approved apps. You can see those on their website. But they don't allow, a lot of like the TikToks and the Snapchats. None of that stuff is downloadable on the phone. There are some like Google Hangout and like a Facebook Lite Messenger, things of that sort that you can get. But what's interesting about that is you can set time parameters, when the phone can be working, when it can't be working. You can restrict calls coming in and out, and a whole plethora of other things. So I just bring that to your attention, just as there are some really, it seems to be some solid programs out there. You just, as a parent, will have to do a little bit of your due diligence to kind of vet those, see what may work best for your family. Unfortunately, most of these all come with a subscription fee that may be in addition to whatever you're paying for your cell phone usage. But if it really will give you maybe a better grasp of what's happening. I would encourage you, should you go this route, to talk to your child and let them know this is what you tend to use. If you do nothing, I think one of the dangers is if you are uncertain about your child's honesty with you, you could take the phone away and you could get the passcode, but they also are very savvy in deleting messages and deleting histories and things of that sort. So you may not fully be able to capture what it is that they're doing if you don't think they're being forthcoming. So you got to kind of assess each situation to be different, and in each interaction with the child and how they're what level of trust you have for them. So hopefully that helps at least give you a few other names to Google in your searches, and maybe that'll get you pinpointed in the right direction.
Great, thanks. And I just want to chime in for the folks at home. We will not be able to answer each and every question. We are trying to group a lot of like questions together. So I just want to make that clear that we might not be able to answer your exact question. And I understand that it's great to be able to hear your exact answer as you want it. But we're trying to group everything together to get to a few other topics. So please do utilize that email address. So if we need to go into more specifics, we can do that in that forum. I'm not going to let the police off the hook just yet. I'm going to ask you guys if you could all, and I'm not sure who wants to chime in, to describe the process on how threats are determined credible or not, and then any percentage of threats that is determined to be legitimate versus not credible, and how that process works.
We respond as though they're all credible at first until we determine that they're not. That's a pretty simple question. Like a lot of times we'll get the threat, start working it, and then the time frame will pass, and then we'll have to, like, if we're waiting on legal demands or forensic examinations, the forensic examinations for these cases is very taxing on manpower, and we need to do it, so they have to be done. But you have to understand that these threats, they're sometimes intended to be annoying, but we have to take them as though they're a real threat to life. So we have to do our forensic examinations just like we would if it was a homicide or if it was something that, we have to treat the evidence the same. So it takes a lot of time to do those things. But obviously we respond to all those. And if we're able to determine that they're not a threat, each situation is a little different. So we might respond to, and we find out that who did it, and then we talk to them, and they not only made this up, but they also don't have the means to carry out the threat. Then we'll say it's not credible. But we still work that as though it's a crime nonetheless. That doesn't change the fact that it was a threat. So to answer that question simply is we work them all as though they're a threat.
I will say that I've seen a lot of people concerned about what's going on with the charges in these cases. None of the threats that we have worked recently were deemed to be credible threats. However you want to word it, we treated them as they were credible. We've charged them as they were credible threats. Just because you make it, and just because you didn't want to, you do anything about it, you just wanted a day off of school, it doesn't matter. It's credible. You made a threat. You scared not only staff, but other children. You may have affected them mentally or emotionally. We're going to treat everything as credible and charge appropriately.
Okay, I'm going to turn to Mr. McKay, if you want to jump in on that note of charges. There's some questions around, how do you keep ages in mind, or what could be considered an innocent error in judgment or a dumb mistake? by a young person when considering charges and maybe avoiding ruining their future. So if you could speak to a little bit on that.
Yeah, thank you. Well, first I'll preface it in that yeah, I'm not the primary attorney that handles the juvenile justice matters, but I do know that that's something that we do take into consideration in our office in determining how we're going to prosecute offense or how we're going to ultimately, in deciding ultimately what disposition the case is going to have. We do take into consideration the age of the child and also, adolescent brain development. I think the science is very clear that a child's brain isn't done developing or maturing until well into their mid-20s. And one of the last portions of the brain that's finished developing is the prefrontal cortex. And that's the part of your brain that's responsible for planning, prioritizing, and most importantly, impulse control. So that is something that we take into consideration, as well as just the major collateral consequences that can come from felonizing a juvenile. They're fingerprinted. That fingerprint is in a part of the national database. It can serve as an obstacle of them possibly joining the military. There are immigration consequences. It can also limit their ability to receive federal financial aid. And then just recognizing the importance and the primary function of the juvenile court system. And it's not for conviction or punishment of a crime, but for crime prevention and juvenile rehabilitation. And so in thinking on how to resolve a matter, we look at what will hold the juvenile accountable, but more importantly, what will help reduce recidivism and help rehabilitate the child. So that's something that we're really looking at, is accountability as well as rehabilitation, so that the child doesn't make these mistakes again. And also, taking into account, what is safe for the community.
Okay, thank you. We're gonna switch back to Dr. Turner for a few questions. First is, there you are. Does the school district use Dr. Cornell's threat assessment process? And if not, what assessment is used?
Okay. Well, we obviously have a threat assessment model that we use. Currently do not use Dr. Cornell's model, but it is we use the Department of Criminal Justice Services model, and based on Virginia Tech Secret Service data. That's what we use currently.
Okay, thanks. And then there's some people that are new to the school district. There's actually several people that are new to the school district that are chiming in. And they would like to know what a normal year is like, and how this compares to it. And has there been an uptick this year in security issues, or is this the normal?
Well, I think I'd like to start off by saying that there's been an uptick in terms of infractions committed by students kind of all over the country, as well as the state. What we're seeing is it's not isolated to Albemarle County Public Schools. We have had an uptick in behaviors that we would like to not see, but I would not say that I've seen any evidence of really our schools being in jeopardy of major violence or that the threats were extremely credible. I think we've had more discipline in general, but it seems to mirror what's going on around the state as well as the nation.
Abby, can I just say real quick, there was an article on December 9th in the Wall Street Journal about how schools throughout the country are confronted with a wave of student misbehavior. And so there's some research being done now. There's obviously, I teach crisis intervention team training in our police department and regionally. And mental health is a big deal for everyone right now. COVID, there's so much uncertainty. The kids are not immune to that. I'm not giving them an excuse or reason to do this, but I know that there's been, if you throw a kid out of their routine and then you try to put them at home. Some of those kids were at home unsupervised because their parents had to work during the pandemic, and now you're putting them back in a school setting where they're supposed to be structured again, and they're bucking the system on that a little bit. So I think it's important to note that kids are not immune to having mental health issues. They got a lot of stressors too. They don't know what the real world's like yet, but they do have stressors, some more than others. And I think it's important to note that this did throw them off their game a little bit. It's a little unusual to be like, some people are half virtual, half in person. And there's, the structure that they're used to, because boundaries are safe. They keep us all safe. So I think it's important to remember that too, that's probably a reason to have this wave. And hopefully at some point we'll get past all this and behavior will come back to normal. That's what we want. We don't want to drop hammers on juveniles as police. We're not out to hammer children for making stupid mistakes. But at the same time, we have to balance that, because we have student safety is a big deal. If you're going to threaten it, and then other kids and parents feel violated because they might not feel safe again. So that we have to try to figure out where's the balance in all that. So that's what the struggle is with the Commonwealth Attorney's Office, with the police, with the schools. We're trying to figure out what is the right thing to do, because we all want to do the right thing. We just might not agree on what that is. So we're trying to figure out, and each case is a little different, because if the kid's been given chances before and is unwilling or unable to comply with the rules, then they probably get a little stiffer penalty than someone who this is a first offense thing. So we got to keep that in mind too.
To segue a little bit for what you just said, there's a drain on mental health when you're in a school that has had threats, and this can weigh on parents and on students and beyond resources. Dr. Turner, could you talk a little bit more about what support services there are available to students that may be dealing with PTSD, or just how to handle that environment?
Well, again, I go back. Obviously, the relationship piece is major, because oftentimes if our school staff are not aware, it's hard to help. But once we are aware, we have school counselors in our individual schools. Students can have access to school psychologists. We've been able to put in place a new position, social emotional learning coaches. That's another layer of support for our students. So we're trying to meet the students where they are, and we're trying to beef up, if you will, the supports that we have, the bodies and the trained individuals, even our safety coaches, although they're not, their positions are really not rooted in the mental health piece solely. Their jobs are coupled, or their positions are coupled with a safety piece, but a physical safety piece. But they also can do some lower level counseling, or be able to receive the child, and then if need be able to help them get to the other individuals who are more trained in counseling or therapy, who work in the school. So that's what we have now in place.
Okay, and I want to recognize that we are barely scratching the surface of this really important topic. And so I want to thank everybody that's here virtually, our panelists and our folks at home who are chiming in. Please do not hesitate to use that email if you want to reach out for more information, if you want some more details. And I'm just gonna ask Dr. Turner or somebody from the police if you have any final thoughts that you just want to share with our community before we wrap up. We have about 2 minutes before 8:30.
Well, I guess I would just say right quick, I know that there is a concern all the time in many ways regarding safety in our schools for parents. I'm a parent. I have a child who's in the middle school and a child who's a high school student. And obviously I want them to be safe, just like I want every child to be safe. So the first thing that I would say is that please, parents, encourage your children. If they know something, say something. And the same for you. Even if you're not really sure if you think it's credible. I think that Detective Wells, he said it earlier, and I've worked with him so many years, and he's always so spot on that we take every threat seriously. So if you've heard something, you think you know something, the school would rather know than not know, because at least we can have it on the forefront or in the forefront. So if it needs to be worked on, then we can start to address it. So never feel like you can't share information with us, or that your child cannot share information with us as well. Thank you.
And Abby, this is Greg Jenkins from the police department. I'd also like to echo what Dr. Turner was saying, that our police department shares a very good working relationship with him, Dr. Haas, and our school principals and staff, and our detectives and our police department. Your police department's going to do everything we can to keep our schools safe and our children that are going to our schools safe. And that anything our police department can do to ensure the safety of our schools, we're going to work with our school systems. I'm going to ensure that that happens. So if anyone ever has a question or concern, please reach out to us at the police department. Be glad to try to help and answer any questions that we can. Thank you all for having us tonight.
All right, so I'm just gonna give a final plug to please use that email address at webinarquestions@k12albemarle.org. We will send your questions to the right person. I know that, again, we are only scratching the surface here, and there's a lot of follow-up discussion that we hope that everyone is open to reach out to anyone on this panel to discuss further. We want an open forum of discussion and sharing ideas and how we can make this a better environment moving forward. Thank you all, and we hope you have a wonderful night.